So you're glad.
Glad you're dead.
Glad you're dead, man.
Hello, welcome to Quackcast number 358. This is the Drunk Duck Quackcast. With me is a very sick Pit Face. Hello, Pit Face.
Oh, I farted when I coughed. I don't know that transfer.
That's called a cough. Okay. We have Tan Serene, who is not amused at all.
Hello.
And we have Baines. Hello.
Hello.
Who is not sick and is amused.
Yes.
And me, of course. And so we're going to be talking about damaged characters. Damaged. It could be physical, mental, any kind of damage you can think of. Damaged protagonists, really. So that was a news post by Baines. You posted that, didn't you, Baines? The other day.
Yes.
You reposted, I should say. This is one of the best of Baines.
Nobody needs to know that. How'd you know that? I went way back, man.
You pulled this one out.
Nobody's going to know. Yeah.
How did I know? It's just magic, I suppose.
I did a little bit of a rewrite on it, kind of, slightly.
Okay.
I was like, nobody's going to know. But you knew.
I just
I
guessed.
had no idea. Oh, really?
You revealed it now.
Wow.
No,
like
you
detective.
Actually, you stuck it in your the tags for the thing. So
I did? Oh, okay, yeah.
Thursdays with Baines, best of Baines.
There you go. Good catch.
You're one of those serial killers who has left a series of clever clues.
That's right. I want to be caught, man. I keep going back to the cemetery.
There's a photo of you killing the killer. They'll never catch me.
Do you like that, by the way, the best of Baines as a positive spin on the I'm too lazy to do a new post?
Yeah, it's a good idea. You should check out.
It's good branding, right?
Exciting.
Yeah.
It's good branding.
It's your season finale, man.
That's right. Clip show.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Or
Yes.
it would just be your filler episode when the characters are reminiscent. It's full of clips of all the other episodes.
Exactly.
That's how
We're stuck in the cooler. We're locked in the cooler, and we're remembering old news posts.
Or it's a core
Exactly.
episode, and they're
What?
where they have a trial, and then do it
Oh,
all
there's another
sci-fi shows,
Yeah.
and they always go back and say, and this happened, and then this happened, and then they have to recount
right.
these situations.
Exactly.
Damn it, Baines. All right. Well, before we get into that, damaged characters, damaged protagonists, which are an exciting kind of way of making characters. Let's chat about the feature. Okay, well, Quai's going to chat about it. So, Quai, give us your feature, and your feature was zombie. Take it away, Quai.
Hello, this is Quackcast, and the feature I've selected for this week is Arg Zombie by Skeptical Square, and it is rated T for Teen. Happy New Year 2018. Arg Zombie is a one-panel comic that follows the life of an adorable little zombie. Each day, the zombie gives an update on the status of an imminent zombie apocalypse or shows off new dance moves. It is a rather cute and amusingly unconventional comic with references to pop culture. The art has a crayon and pen sandbox feel, even though it might all be created digitally. All pages are in full color. Celebrate the new year with a new zombie friend and read Arg Zombie by Skeptical Square, rated T.
And that was the feature from Quai. It was Zombie. Not R zombie as in R, it's R as in Arg Zombie. Yeah, you have to pronounce all the consonants. Alright, so after that we have the featured music by Gumwallace, and Gumwallace has given us the theme to Doc 2D Who. Doc 2D Who. Doc 2D Who.
Yeah.
She's a comic by Scream.
By Scream.
Very
funny.
Yeah. Hey, last week I had the Howie scream on the very start of the Quackcast.
Cool. I didn't listen. Yeah, awesome.
I should listen just for that. It's such a terrible scream, the Howie scream. It's the worst one. So yeah, Scream gave us Doc 2D Who, which is a cool little comic, but the theme here is the apprehensive feel of old school Doctor Who entering the darkness and unknown. This music is spatial and atmospheric. So take it away, Gumwallace, with Doc 2D Who. And that was our theme for Doc 2D Who by Gumwallace. Thank you very much for that, Gumwallace, which is a comic by Scream, and everyone should read it because it's so much fun. And I think he actually got tweeted by one of the Doctor Who people. They tweeted.
Get out of here, really?
Comic, yeah.
Awesome, man.
I think so.
Well deserved. That Scream is a talented...
Oh, yeah. He's a genius, that
sort.
guy.
Yeah.
And Pit Face's child. What's that?
Yes, my son. Nothing. It's a dumb joke. My son.
And is he a damaged character, would you say?
Scream?
He's going to be when I'm done with him.
You damage him good. So we're going to be talking about damaged protagonists. So not necessarily characters, because you can have any sort of damaged character. But a protagonist is your main characters who are doing, they're carrying the whole story or the voice or whatever, They're the active characters who are the big part of... They're not even active. They're the main character pretty much, aren't they?
Yeah, it's what we're focused on. And a character will... not necessarily always, but almost always will be a flawed if they're a well-defined character. But this idea goes beyond that to people who are seriously damaged.
All right.
To the degree that you're are we still rooting for this person, or is this person, do we want them to get where they're going? And there's sort of a sense of maybe danger when you're reading about this character or watching this character where you're not sure what's going to happen. It goes beyond just regular character flaws to being like someone who's, really got something wrong with them, at least on some level.
So what do you mean by damage here? So you're not talking about someone with a broken leg. You're talking about someone...
Yeah, somebody's with a broken leg. And you're like, I don't trust this guy. Broke his leg. He's an idiot. Yeah.
That was a sign of the devil, actually, if you had something along, like a club foot or something, and they...
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
well, I'm left-handed. I know about that. I know about being cursed and damaged.
Yeah. Well, there you are.
Satanic, yeah.
Yeah. You personally know the demons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works. But the character in the Usual Suspects, the what was his name? Verbal, played by Kevin Spacey. He had the limp in that, which was a sign of the devil, So.
Oh, okay. Wow. I think I might have heard that somewhere before. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's sort of going off.
That's not what we're talking about, really. Yeah.
It's not. But so
although the characters in that movie they're all criminals, and there was some concern about can viewers relate to these people? Like, are people going to be taken in by them and root for them and sort of accept them as heroes? Yeah. So it does tie in, and they actually used a like an outtake, like sort of a blooper or a bad shooting day, where the characters were in the lineup, that classic scene where they're all, at the police station, and none of them can stop laughing. Like they kept ruining the shooting day, and like everyone was furious with them. But it ended up being the fact that they were all like making a joke out of it and laughing ended up being, in the filmmaker's opinion, like something that really humanized them and made them more relatable. So yeah.
I heard one of them did a terrible fart and he couldn't stop farting, and that was.
I heard that too. There was Benicio. Yeah, I remember. About that.
Benicio del Toro.
Yeah,
the one who came up with an accent and you couldn't understand what he was saying.
Yeah,
at all. In the film.
Hey, flip yo. Okay, this movie is like 100 years old. Let's move on. We can move on. Like, some people know what we're talking. Okay. Oh, everybody knows that movie, right? Yeah.
The Usual Suspects is it's a fantastic movie. So damaged prospects. So the prospects, damaged protagonists. So you're talking about characters who have some real emotional damage. So, like they have a bad drinking problem, that kind of thing. Their wife left them or whatever, and maybe they're a drug addict or something like that, or they're dangerous in that way.
Right.
That kind of damage. What would you consider, say, Shinji in Neon Genesis Evangelion to be a damaged character? Because he has like problems with his dad, and
I don't know that show.
Oh man, we should have had what's his name, Abbott Nihil on. He loves that character, loves that show.
Right. Okay.
That character, he has to fight against these big monsters called angels, and so he has to pilot this big mecha, but he can't do it because he feels all the emotional pressure and he's too scared and all this kind of stuff, and he's thinks, oh, my dad never loved me, and it's like you hate him because of that, because he's such a passive little dick. But
all right,
he has these extreme emotional damage to him, so he's very much a damaged character, and you can't sympathize with him at all.
Okay, that's your opinion. Although Abbott Hill likes the character.
Because he's just weird. This is like most of
everyone. Just weird. Abbott Hill is damaged. Yeah.
Yes, I think mostly everyone hates Shinji. He's the watchword for a damaged character. He's like the absolute paragon of damaged characters.
Paragon of damage.
Precisely. So, could you tell us some examples of really good damaged protagonists?
So there's there are more recent ones, but we'll go with Walter White, who's a great example, and we saw the series end, so we got to see how it all played out. Oh. So there's one scene, and there are scenes earlier too where he does things that, as a viewer, you're like, why is he doing that? Like, he could get the money he needs to take care of his family after he dies without going farther. Like, early in the series, there are some opportunities for him to achieve his goal and, get back to somewhat of a regular life, and he's just, sick or whatever. But because the show needs to keep going, and also because he's damaged, he keeps going. It has his whole driver is about money, and it's about his family, but it's also about, he's got an ego problem. Yeah. And he's also got some kind of deep trauma. There's a point later in the series where he snaps. He's being kind of pushed by another character, the Mike character. And it's kind of like being put down by this guy a lot. And at one point, Walter snaps and starts shooting at him, at a defenseless Mike kind of thing. And it's like, he doesn't really have a reason for it beyond he's a traumatized person for whatever reason. We don't really know where that comes from, where his dysfunction comes from, but he's a hero who like does things that we really hate.
Yeah.
And he's got issues, like I said, beyond the flaws that, you know, the average protagonist would have.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think about
Another
it.
example is in Mindhunter. That's a newer show where the guy is there's something wrong with the guy. We're not totally sure what. It's just been one season so far, but maybe he'll get better. But there's something odd about the guy. But yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Walter White, classic example.
Yeah. It really explains the character actions that otherwise would not be explainable. I was thinking, Tance mentioned House, like last week or some other time we were talking about characters like that, and I think that was a good example of a character who is damaged. Would you agree, Tance? A damaged protagonist.
The guy with a limp.
Does he have a limp?
Yeah, I mean,
I
think up to a point he was what you would say a damaged character. After that, he became like beyond the middle of the series, like after, I don't know, season 3 or 4, caricature. So I wouldn't call him a good example because I think that the show suffered because they tried to pander to the audience too much. So they cranked up to 11 the elements that made House an entertaining character, but they sacrificed the realism level that would make this character be damaged in the sense that we would expect to meet such a person in real life and in the situation that he would. So but I do think, at least in the first couple of seasons, maybe first 3 seasons, like, I haven't seen it for years, so they blur in my mind now. But yeah, in the first half, let's say, he would be a damaged character because he is so traumatized with his leg and how that accident came about and what it means about him, his relationship with his existential issues make him extremely acerbic and very hard to be with. So that's much, in my opinion.
And it's I don't know, was it a fad in comics for damaged characters to suddenly be all the rage? Because I think back and suddenly
we have Batman, right?
There's Batman,
Probably.
there's Wolverine, there's the Punisher, all sorts of things. That Rider guy, whatever, Ghost Rider. They're all sort of very damaged kind of characters, aren't they? With some problems.
Yeah, but I think they go too far. Like, they are so damaged. Like, you can have a damaged car that you always fear that maybe the engine will go out or the will go out. But these guys are damaged to the level where you're just driving with a chassis and a steering wheel, and that's all there is. So that doesn't wash unless you are in a Coyote cartoon. So I think that steals from the damaged characters, which is unfair because they would be very, if they had toned down a little bit, and the angst and the emo.
The angst.
And that is coming from me. And I love drama and I love emo, and they I think they are sometimes taking it a little too far.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Like they are too damaged.
Well, that suddenly happened like with all the characters. I mean, not that I really read comics, but it bled over into the other media, TV and all that kind of stuff. Even Spider-Man, characters like that who are, young and positive, suddenly damaged.
Even Superman.
Yeah.
Like you're not supposed, I mean, okay, you can have Superman be in turmoil and anxious and in angst and everything, but he is the epitome of a perfect godlike figure. Compute for him to be structurally damaged.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't designed to be that. I can understand because his entire design is based, he was born out of the damage. So, okay. But, yeah, I don't know if that is the point is you can have a damaged character and be extremely flawed and be extremely like anti-heroish and do things that are shocking and still audiences identify with him, especially if it makes sense why he's doing what he's doing. But it has to be rooted at some level of design that supports all of his action.
Yeah.
Rather than just slap it on.
Yeah.
Yes,
is what I'm saying.
superficial damage. Superficial. It's just superficial damage. Don't worry about it. Yes, you're right.
It's just a flesh wound.
Precisely. I mean, Baines, you mentioned in your news post characters like the True Detective characters.
Yes.
Whatever their names was, Rust. The other guy.
Rust and what's Woody Harrelson's character? Amazing characters, both of them.
Yeah. So they have obvious damage.
Yeah, they do, and you kind of know where it comes from with the Rust character, with the losing his, years ago he lost his young daughter or son, I think it was daughter, who died. So he's like, that's sort of where it comes from, and he's got this kind of, he doesn't quite fit into normal, like the realm of normalcy, really. Woody Harrelson's character, I don't think it really says where his damage comes from, but he definitely has it. They're both messed up dudes, but also heroic in my opinion. I really loved both of the characters, and I wanted to see them be all right, or be somewhat all right. I was rooting for them, as all right as they could be.
They were literally quite damaged in the end.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They're at a great example.
I think that is also another element. Like, if you have a damaged character, you should at least give him a counterbalance in what sort of goal he has and what he seeks to achieve. That should be at least identifiable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so even if his means are questionable, you can still get behind the character by justifying why he's choosing the questionable means and the goal that is actually commendable. So
it's a good point.
He's not just being a dick. Or he's not just acting out or whatever.
Yeah, like what they're trying to achieve is worth doing. It's something you can respect and get behind. And they also will possibly have other qualities that are, admirable, which those characters did. Yeah, totally.
Well, it helps that both the actors are very charismatic as well. So you get behind them from the beginning because of that. I mean, they're good guys, but both Woody and Matthew McConaughey are both very charismatic, handsome kind of people. So Woody's not that handsome anymore, but you get behind them because of that as well, I think. Don't you find?
It's possible, yeah. That's sort of that star quality and charisma that the actors have. Can help. Probably, yeah.
Well, as well. So
I do like when they can show some ugliness, and like the way they behave is like, you can't really. It's like, it makes you uncomfortable. I guess that's maybe is the test between a character with sort of standard flaws or a character who's quote unquote damaged. Is that as you watch or as you read or whatever, like it makes you uncomfortable. You're like, I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
Really support what this guy's doing right now.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah. How about you guys? Have you thought of making your characters, introducing damage to your characters in order to make them more interesting? Or, well, that's a really silly thing to say, but not to make them more interesting, but to round them out or to give them some other, dimension. And, well, Baines, yours.
I think from.
I'll go on, Tans.
No. Go Baines first.
Well, I was just going to say, with Baines, it's not really that appropriate to have damaged characters in unless they're special characters, like the little detective guy and that kind of stuff.
Right, I kind of gave him an ugly personality and made him kind of hateable. That's true. Yeah. The main cast, they do kind of, in a comedic way, they do somewhat sociopathic things. But even that, I kind of toned it down in the last year or two of updates.
Yeah.
And now I'm barely updating now, so we'll have to see where it goes from now on. But
Oscar's not just going to come on screen drinking and saying, she left me. It's been 5 years now.
I was thinking of doing a story like that, actually. Starting there, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Drink slides onto the bar, and there's Oscar. Takes a swig. Neat whiskey.
That would be a bit of a departure. Yeah.
It's not the same. TK's there as the bartender. Oh, jeez. It's writing itself. That's
right. That's what. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm down. How about yourself?
Definitely not. No, I think I made a conscious decision with Pinky TA that if she had any emotional damage, that I wouldn't show it. I'd show things through the, her actions and through what's happening on screen, and the actual scenes and stories and that kind of stuff would be the only things that express her character, rather than really going into her emotional state and all that kind of thing. Because I just didn't. A bit of history for me for reading comics. I'd never really read comics that much. I mean, superhero comics or anything. But when I was really little, I'd read things like, the traditional stuff, the Superman, the Spider-Man, all that kind of stuff. But the really early versions of that. And when I read, when I plunged into the deep end of the pool and read the actual more modern versions, I was shocked, oh my god, why did these characters have all these emotions and things like X-Men and things like that? Why do they have all these emotional struggles? Oh my god. And so forever after, I just went, retreated from that and started reading, the simple comics like Asterix and things
Little
like
Lulu
this.
and
and
Ziggy
the old war comics and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was really what I wanted to do, rather than have that kind of thing. So yeah, I've always been a bit anti that myself. Whether that's a good idea or not, I just have been averse because of that that childhood damage I received.
I think there's definitely a thing of Tance was suggesting this, of people jumping on it and it being done in a kind of like an unsophisticated way, or it's kind of just put on as a sort of quote unquote cool factor, or just to, people doing it and it's not sophisticated. It's not making the characters more sophisticated or more complex or more interesting. It's just done in a ham-fisted way. It might be going too far in film in that direction right now, maybe. It can be done well, but it can be done badly.
When it's not done well, it makes it seem like pandering for the character, and that's really annoying. You get what I mean?
You just don't buy it.
They want you to feel whether bad for them or feel something in particular about them, but it's forced. That's super fucking annoying, man. I can't stand it.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm trying to think of. I don't remember there's very few characters that I've gotten into that have been like damage has been part of their background, but there are a few. I remember back in the day when I first started getting into comics, I got really into Spawn, and that character. I mean, it's when you want damage, like that's there you go, like that's as damaged as a character can be, I think, and not be dust. Like it's actually even. I don't know what the series is doing nowadays. I think I made it to about episode near issue 100 or so. But his emotion, not emotional, but like his history of damage, all the things that he's gone through, in a way, is almost kind of reflected in his physique, and that'll happen with a lot of characters. Like, you know, they'll show it on the outside some way. The same thing has actually kind of happened with Basil a little bit. You know, he was in the war before the occupation and stuff like that, and his results, you know, him losing the arm and having the scar across his eye, you know, that's a physical reminder to us of or at least an inkling to us that something has happened in the past. So that kind of stuff is cool. And in Spawn's case, I still think it was pretty cool too, because that was taking it to such an extreme that it was neat, you know, and he was still badass and stuff. And you want to see him find some kind of happiness. But I don't know, I'm trying to think of some examples on the other end of the spectrum that I don't like, and I'm sure there's plenty. I just can't. You know, when you don't get interested in something, it doesn't stick with you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right in that it can make characters, I mean, as Bane says, it can humanize them. It can make them more fascinating in a lot of ways when you're finding more details about them. If it isn't done in a ham-fisted way, yeah, it can work really well. Like History of Violence is a really good kind of fantastic action film, and that character,
I remember that, is
totally the way he is because
used to
of
be
damage.
A comic.
Yeah, it was made after a comic that I haven't read. But that character is...
Well, I've read the comic and I haven't seen the movie, so...
Oh, wow. Well, there you are. That character owes everything he is to his damage, because you see him as a nice, friendly guy, like he works in a diner or something, in the movie version at least. And these guys come in and hold everyone hostage with guns, and they're going to kill everyone, and he reacts and becomes this badass in 5 seconds flat, and stabbing people through the feet or whatever he was doing, you know, punching people and shooting everyone and being an incredible badass. And that was because of some sort of, you know, prior thing that had happened to him. And you find out as the story goes on, you know, just what happened and why he's like that. And that really lends him depth, which is the point. So that's an example of damage used in a really interesting way to make an idea, you know, just an action revenge drama, way more interesting than it would normally be.
Right. Absolutely.
So,
it's a good example, actually. I'd forgotten about that.
I'm thinking about, like, I'm trying to really think of examples like damaged heroes, because there are some villains that are very damaged, and their villainy stems from that damage that I can actually buy. And although you want that person or even dead, you can understand why he or she is being as is being, and why they're doing what they're doing, and why they are so evil and stuff.
Yeah.
And that especially works in, like, I have at least 3 examples from Korean dramas, because they do that a lot with villains. You don't have these mustache twirling villains, but you have very obsessive villains that they can't help it. if you don't stop them, they will continue until they die, basically. So, which for me, I mean, it turns them, in a sense, this damage turns them into a force of nature.
Right.
It's stronger than them. They're not gonna contain. They either they can't, or they do not want to, exactly because of the damage. So it comes down to the same.
Yeah, they become owned by it. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly.
Oh, go on.
But I'm not sure. Like I'm thinking, like there are a couple of detectives, like Monk. If you remember, he had OCD.
Yeah.
Because he was traumatized from what happened to his wife, and the entire mystery that he ends up resolving at the end of the series is what basically created his damage, and it's this damage that gives him the power that he has, being the detective that he is. But also it limits him. In the sense. So he
it also
gets a
played
strength.
into his. Sorry. There was a lag on my
No,
end.
go
I didn't
on,
know
go
you were
on.
still talking. No, I was going to say, I mean, I've never watched much of Monk, but it played into his personality as well, didn't it? Like, didn't it make him more likable? Like, didn't it make him kind of quirky, or no? Like, am I thinking of
Yes,
Columbo?
very much.
Yeah,
So.
okay. So I mean, so that's a good example of how it's done. And also, not to mention, so like when you started mentioning, like talking about like, you know, damaged heroes versus damaged villains, it made me kind of think like, well, what does make it more permissible for villains? And I think the short answer is, and of course the very general answer, is that with a villain, it's going somewhere, but with a hero, their main problem is whatever is usually going on outside of them. When you have this other thing that's tacked onto them, this sad backstory or whatever, or this damage, then unless it's handled very well, it feels like a part of the story that really doesn't serve any purpose. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
No, speaking of damage, I don't know. I mean, we have defined it as a psychological issue that has come from trauma, right?
Yeah.
But the damage might be not from a particular trauma, from a personality flaw. And I'm thinking how I'm constructing, like I am going to be very interested in Orestes as the story goes in Without Moonlight, because he is a very damaged person, but it's not because he has sustained some kind of trauma in his back, like nobody beat him as a kid or whatever. I mean, he had a very normal life until the war, but he is extremely selfish, like in the sense of not just selfish. He can't accept someone being better than him, and that is his biggest issue.
Yeah.
So
I think that would qualify as depending on what you do with it or how it plays out. Yeah,
that is damage.
Yeah.
So,
well, when it transcends a flaw, then it can become damage.
Exactly, because it compels him. It gets him into a sort of hysterics mindset, a headspace that he has to something or to delete something from the equation that is all he wants, beyond the reason and beyond what actually has to happen. So that is very dangerous, of course.
Yeah, when it starts driving the plot and driving the direction the story takes, then it's not just a flaw. Yeah, that's
I think also something to go into that definition is so damage is something that is going against that very character's best interests. Like, for instance, so I'm sitting there thinking, like, the difference between that and an anti-hero. So Lobo, I love Lobo. He's flawed, but he's not damaged, although that the characteristics that people would call flawed make up his personality. So, but the difference in that is that it doesn't infringe upon him. It doesn't, weaken him. So damage implies a weakness of some sort. If we're really going to unpack it, I guess. But I mean, not really. We have been unpacking it, but like something that if you can,
or it takes over.
Like what?
Something that takes over. It's not just flaws don't really take over.
Takes over, but I would say more like damages the structure of that person. Not in a physical sense, but like eats at them, I guess. I'm thinking of it in a very visual way. So it's not just a flaw, as we've been talking about.
Okay, so
it's not just something that makes up. It's not just something that makes up their personality.
Yeah, it changes everything about them. Would you say?
And is detrimental to them, even if they don't know it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and they usually won't know it until it's smacked them in the face for a few times. So
it's the only way they'll learn.
Anyway, that.
Yeah. I got something to say. Shit.
Do you think like damage is something that, as opposed to a flaw, is it something that can't be overcome by the character? Is that an essential?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, if it is, then it's a major plot point. I mean, that could be like a big story thing, like a catharsis or something. Right?
I would say that it can, at least theoretically, be overcome, but it should be far harder than a normal obstacle. That like
the stakes are high.
It should be
it's
something
a character-defining trait, So, go on, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah. So, in order for a person to be over their damage, so basically fixing it in a sense, they would need to change the structure of their own design.
Mm-hmm.
Something super big and super jarring, enough to reconstruct this character, like to basically transform them, should occur for the damage to be cured, quote unquote.
Oh, I just thought of one time. Sorry.
Yeah, so that I would say that should be possible, but extremely harder to constitute that this is damage that this character has.
I just thought of a guy who does that in all his story characters, Stephen Donaldson. All his characters are very much damaged, and specifically in his huge hit series from years ago, it was called the Thomas Covenant series, I think it's called. This character goes to some magical land and has to fix things for the people and go on a quest, but he's amazingly, hugely damaged, and the whole story's about that, and the whole world changes because of this man's damage. That's how much he's damaged. It comes to reflect his damage. So, and him actually getting over his damage, like you were saying, Tance, that involves, it's so great that it involves, the path of the entire story and changing everything about, him and the path of the world in order for that to be resolved. So, yeah, I think it was a bit overdone myself. A bit overdone.
Well, it can make for melodrama a lot if it's not done right.
Yeah, I don't
There
know.
is a very emotional.
Yeah.
And if you take any opera, if you take any opera's plot, you would have a damaged character that either is destroyed by said damage or they overcome it, but in such a dramatic manner and even over the top because it's opera, that they either land into some other kind of damage in order to overcome the previous one, or it basically undoes them in a sense. So they cancel themselves out.
Okay, yeah.
I am undone. I love that phrase. I am undone.
I am undone.
Well, that's when you drop your dildo. Well, let's not get into that. Yeah, so those kind of damages that can be quite you can use it to define and change the level of the story. So it's not just defining your character, it's defining everything. It's defining the course of your writing. Speaking how we were before about characters with superficial damage or damage put onto them to make them more interesting, there's the new Tomb Raider film coming up, and that character Lara Croft in that has gone through
Tomb Robin whore.
She's gone through quite a lot of changes. Originally she was just a sexy tomb robbing character in the original, and in the films with Angelina Jolie, which even though I don't like her as an actress, I love those films. I like those as action films. But this latest film, it's based on the latest video game where she's a damaged character in the more modern sense, and it's more gritty and stuff like that.
Gritty reboot.
Gritty reboot, exactly.
She gets damaged because a rock falls on her.
There's more of those rocks falling on her, I think, until she can't get up.
Context matters, you bitch.
Yeah, so that is an example, I think, of a character where they have added damage to make it more interesting, to make the character more human or more relatable, or I don't know.
Again, though, if they pile it on too much, I mean, they have to keep in mind what kind of a story it is. It's at best an Indiana Jones story. Les Miserables.
Right.
In some sort of catacomb.
Yeah.
So, because that also will throw the viewers out of, at least I think, out of the narrative, because you go in expecting certain things. So, if you damage the character in a way that taps onto things that are too deep for the genre, maybe, there is a risk that this will basically make the story collapse in a sense.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also a trend to make female heroes these days to be damaged more than anything else in order to make them more realistic or more relatable. I feel that may be a trend. They're not allowed just to be heroes in their own right, or to be, strong characters. They have to have some kind of suffering. Or...
Yeah, I'd agree. I haven't seen enough new things lately, so I'll shut up. But I do agree that there has to be like this obstacle. And how much that constitutes as damage. I'm thinking of Wonder Woman right now, and I wouldn't call her damaged, but she could get really close to it if they ran with that plot line a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen the film. So what happened? What is she's damaged because her country or her people are in danger or whatever? Or
oh, now I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember if I think a bunch of them were killed, and then
her boyfriend died sacrificing her.
Oh yeah, but before that happens, there's this whole conflict that she has, and granted, it's still a conflict, and that's why I don't call it damage outright. But she starts to, her main thing is that she wants to go and protect mankind, right? Mm-hmm. But she starts to discover that they're flawed, and so she starts to kind of have this conflict, are they really worth saving and stuff like that kind of thing. And it's really has an impact on her. And so that's what I'm thinking about. Like, if they ran with that more, it could have the potential of really damaging her, because it's shattering a worldview that she has come to depend on and build a paradigm on, more or less. Mm-hmm. So,
that's an interesting aspect. So she could be a Batman in the end. It's totally disillusioned with the world.
Yeah.
In her little cave.
That bastard's got some damage going on, Batman.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit.
Far too much. I think, when it becomes too much of a character-defining thing, then the authors really need to, get a dose of reality. I mean, it doesn't make the character relatable anymore. It becomes the kind of mental illness the character has if you take it to that level.
I mean, I kind of wonder if that's, I'm just kind of spitballing, but if that, like, as opposed to flaws that make people more realistic and with more going on, internal stuff to overcome, damage might be, like, I find, like, characters that I consider damaged make it a lot of, I'm not really thinking of Batman, but other characters, like, it makes them less relatable, not more.
Okay.
Like Walter White, when you see his damage play out, it's like, what the hell's the matter with you? Like, why are you doing that? It's like that kind of reaction, It's like they're not acting normal. Yeah. There's something really wrong beyond the regular kind of human flaws that people have.
So damage is there to make them interesting in one sense, but it's also there to explain the weird behavior traits that you as an author have given them. Or the weird decisions they make, as in Walter White, who makes crazy decisions.
Or it's there in the writing, and from there the character is going to do these weird things.
Okay.
I think the relatability hinges on how plausible the reason for the damage is. Like, for example, especially if you want it to be on a hero, because a villain gets the leeway that, okay, they were a sick cat before the damage happened, now they are super sick and super villainous. But if you have a hero that you want damage on, the cause of the damage to be something extraordinary enough to warrant what the damage does to them. So, for example, if you just have them, get cancer, and that because they have cancer and they cannot get the health care, drug lord, and then they gun running and stuff. That doesn't compute, because a lot of people are in that situation and they don't get to be crime lords.
Yeah.
Because of it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So his damage is not the cancer; it's something else. Right? I'll give you a chance.
Exactly.
You're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That's it. However, if you have someone like I'm going back to the Punisher because it's easy, but if I remember correctly, his entire family killed before him, and he was also left for dead, and it was very, very harsh, and it was extremely callous, and okay, that is unusual enough and extreme enough. Person over the edge and just go and be a vigilante and do certain things and blah.
Yeah.
So what I'm
I
saying
can't
is
think
that
about. Okay, go ahead.
I made my point. So I mean, it has to have some kind of obvious causal link. That's what I'm saying.
But do you have to see the cause of the damage? I'm not thinking of a ton of examples. I'm thinking of Walter White. I'm thinking of the dude in Mindhunter so far. Chuck in Better Call Saul, who is not a protagonist, but you don't ever find out what the damage, what the trauma was. They don't tell you. And I like that.
I think that
it's not tied
that
to a
might
specific
work.
incident,
Yeah, I think that might work, but then you would need to have the supporting characters justified in a sense. So I think it's if you don't show what the damage was, you have to show through the characters' actions and reactions to situations that in context normal enough that whatever it is that happened probably was big enough to get him to be how he is in the damage area.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I think I know what you mean. Like, kind of when they're pushed to the wall, you see like the character's behavior. Like maybe they have a goal that you understand. There's something you want. I think that's where the relatability comes in. A character, that's what a protagonist is. They want something, and we understand what it is, and we want to see them get it, kind of thing. But it's like with the damage aspect of it, it's like you see them behaving weirdly a little bit. You see hints of their ego that makes no sense, or their whatever it happens to be, like they're overly touchy or whatever it is. And then as the story goes on and they're pushed to the wall and stressful situations happen, like you see the way the damage sort of expresses itself, even if you don't know what made them like that. They're like that, Some people are just like that. They're just fucked up,
Yeah.
And it's not tied to one instance of abuse or their whole family got shot up or something like that. Like, you don't know. That's more realistic.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. But that again, it has to be solved in a way that then feels like, okay, this person probably has some kind of either cumulative effect or whatever, but it should make some sort of and be consistent enough so that we understand that this is the damage, but this is the actual person underneath the damage. And so we can get behind this person.
Okay.
There's a lot of echo there, sorry.
So when they do show a person, the reason for their damage, the whole family getting shot, that makes it more relatable, doesn't it? No? Because now it's a logical thing.
I don't know about that. Maybe.
Well, you sort
like,
of...
I remember...
Go on.
There is this villain in... she's a villain, okay? You are not supposed to get behind her in anything. But the art behind this character's design is that when you first get to meet her, she is this perfect person that you really like in many ways. And then layer by layer, she starts having these small reactions that get progressively bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like pulling back every layer of pretense and veneer and defense that she might have as the situation pushes her more and more to reveal her actual psychosis, because she's a psychotic, super dangerous. But and you never actually get to fully see when this thing happened, but you get small subtle hints that sketch out the framework with which got to be this twisted. And it's all about how her mother raised her and things like that. You see small snippets of shadows of abuse. Like you don't actually even see the whole scene. You see just small, very quick nightmares, like flashbacks of her as a young child, abuse that twists her into being who she is to survive. And you can understand her. You still want her put down, but you can understand her. So, and you never see the actual, the full extent of the damage. You are given tastes and whiffs of it.
Mm.
And that is very efficient in telling you where this character comes from, this villain. And I think that can also work for a hero.
Yeah. Just you don't want to hammer people over the heads, but you still want it to be understandable. Because it's, say, the example of the whole Walter White thing, that has to be said, that is expert level writing. And not everyone can do that. In order to make a story that convincing and compelling, you have to be extremely adept at what you're doing.
Yeah.
And most people don't really aren't at that level. So.
Yeah, true.
And they actually do acknowledge that the damage isn't the cancer. The cancer is just a trigger.
Yeah.
And the excuse for him to just go and be this person that was lurking inside of him. So,
so
actually he is written properly.
What's that?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that he's written properly.
Yeah.
Because it looks like it's the cancer that does the whole twitch of this character. But in the end, it is actually acknowledged, I think, in some kind of dialogue. I don't remember well. He does acknowledge that he was serving some other purpose.
Yeah, suddenly you have his, like Baines was saying earlier, that this arrogance that he has, and this whole thing, how he was one-upped or something in his life as a university lecturer or professor or whatever it was, or he was stifled in his ambitions to be a great chemist.
Yeah, his company that he started, from what he says, kind of fell apart and he was screwed over, but you never really see it objectively, like a flashback to where you see what happens. It's like his point of view is one thing, other people's point of view is something else, and you don't really see whether he's right about that,
So he believes he could have been a great man, and now he actually wants to make it happen. He wants to fulfill his little self-prophecy that he has and show everyone, just show himself, give himself the power that he deserves. So that, what was that? That Breaking Bad. Excellent example of damaged protagonists.
Yeah, and he'll do certain things where you're like, what the hell's the matter with you, man? Yeah. Why are you doing that?
Well, most characters in that are damaged as well in various ways. I mean, we have his wife, Skylar, who is in most of the early episodes, at least, a horrible, horrible person. Well, not a horrible, but a detestable character because of the way she moralizes and she's behaves that way. His brother-in-law and sister-in-law, who are just terrible, terrible people as well.
All their issues. They all have their issues.
It's very well written, beautiful show, and it does damage in the right way, not in the melodramatic way, which is so awful and ruins it for the rest of us. So stop making your protagonist damaged unless you've got a good reason for it. then you can
Yeah,
do it well.
definitely.
Surround them with
Then
damaged
we-
people. I don't know.
Yeah. It will write itself if there is a reason for it. Otherwise, it would feel forced. And like you're forcing someone to be a dickhead.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
that's
Don't kill their parents as a plot point, or as a character feature, unless you got a really good reason for it. Kill their family. Just don't do it.
I have to also say that you might have a character be in a catastrophic situation and have trauma, but that doesn't mean that they would be damaged structurally as a personality and as a character in general. Doesn't mean that they will then become twisted shadows of themselves. And that is very important.
Yeah.
That's because of course, as we've been talking about these characters, you always kind of wonder, like, oh, what characters of mine fall in that category? And Tread is very much the kind of person that Tanya was just describing. I don't manifest it in any way, but I mean, his entire city was destroyed and his whole way of life is gone, and he's been completely uprooted and he's out of his fucking mind. On top of it, at least he was. But you didn't even really see much of that. So he is probably the most damaged person in Putrid Meat, depending on what X's backstory ends up being. But and Gretchen too. But Gretchen, you could see it much more in Gretchen, and how she's changed. But Tread, he's pretty bad off, but he's not necessarily acting in any different way than he would have. But it does have an effect internally on him, I'm pretty sure. A big one. He's kind of recalibrating himself, his mission, so to speak, how he will manage on. So I was thinking that when Putrid Meat ends, if I do continue it ever, because I mean, there's the way I'm ending it, there's still the potential for some things to be going on. And one of the things that Tread does is he kind of goes off and he tries to find this voice that keeps playing in his head, this frequency, so to speak. And if I go that way, it might manifest more that he's damaged, but I don't want it to become the overarching part of the plot because I don't feel it would fit for what I want to do with him, but it is still very much there. So I'm curious how. I don't think I've ever actually written a character like that that does have such damage.
Well,
Curious how I would do it. He's not damaged.
Really?
I mean, he's seen a trauma. But his internal structure hasn't really. Well, I guess it's a fine line maybe, because I would say he's coming to some realizations, but I like him. But I liken it more to. I don't want to say maturity in the sense of. It's almost like a puberty in a way, I think, which is a weird way to put it. But I think it's him more coming to terms with some ways that the world is, and it's going to be pretty rocky. But I don't think.
Yeah,
I mean,
he has a problem with mortality.
Because damage sounds like a strong word,
It
but
is.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, from what you're saying,
and it causes
you're
me
not
to think
talking
about.
damage.
Yeah, it's causing me to think about why I don't consider him damaged. So it's interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Because maybe it's just. This is just an example of him thinking about things rather than a character-defining thing. His core isn't affected, so to speak, or there wasn't any. Seismic shift in his personality to make him this way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He'll do some things differently, but yeah, it's weird, but yeah. And I would consider Gretchen much more damaged.
yeah, Gretchen is very obviously a damaged character. Very, very obviously. That's why we love her. Well, I think we can come towards the end of the Quackcast now. We can tie up those loose ends. All right, so this has been a Quackcast number 358, Damaged Protagonists, Baines' genius idea.
Grazie.
Thank you for
I feel better already. Yeah.
It's been cathartic.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks very much, guys, for being on the Quackcast. Thanks, Pit, Baines, and Tance. That's it. I knew there was a third person.
Thank you.
All right, guys.